Welcome to another Speak Loud podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed the last one with Laura. It was awesome to be able to introduce her to the podcast and bring her on kind of officially onto the podcast. She is not with me today. We had separate obligations today. She has most recently found herself nominated and brought on a board. So she had an event this morning she had to be at, while I had video that had to be shot for a restaurant in Deep Ellum in Dallas. So that is what I'm on my way back from right now. I have to go from Deep Ellum to Rockwall, Texas. Deep Ellum, for those of you that are not familiar, is just downtown Dallas, or an area of downtown Dallas. We were shooting video for a barbecue restaurant down there, and now I'm headed to Rockwall for another appointment. But I really enjoyed bringing Laura on, having some of her perspective. It's a couple different things. She is not naturally a public speaker or wants to do that and talk in front of people. But she's growing and evolving in some of the things that aren't necessarily her forte or her cup of tea, and she wants them to be. She wants to feel more comfortable doing those types of things. So the podcast was a great way to just kind of put her on the spot. These are not very scripted, as you could probably tell. I had some ideas of where we wanted it to go, but it's not scripted. We're just having a conversation, and that's how ideally I love doing these, and why I think they feel fairly authentic, and that I guess in theory you guys get value from it, or you wouldn't keep watching and subscribing and all that kind of fun stuff to the channel. So that being said, shameless plug there. If you're watching on YouTube, we would love to have you subscribe. We would love to have you there, so that way you get notified the next time the new podcast comes out. If you're on audio, Spotify or Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, any of those that you're watching this, we would love to have you leave us a review, and you can also kind of favorite the podcast so you get notified when those new episodes come out. But yeah, that's my little shameless plug, and then I'm going to leave it alone. If you're watching the short version of one of these on Instagram, TikTok, somewhere else, hey, come on over to YouTube or go to one of the audio platforms and check out the full version. So fast forward, episode for today is one that is so much fun for me, because as I've mentioned before, typically our topics for our podcast are real world happenings, meaning either a client has brought an issue to us, a new client has come on board that we are launching a campaign for, we're navigating through creative, we're working on scaling, helping a business get over a hurdle or roadblock or revenue milestone, or whatever it may be. And so we're able to take some of that and bring it back to the podcast, because if we were able to kind of navigate and work through it for that client or for our business, there's a good chance that someone listening to this can use that information in their own business. And hopefully, maybe it'll save you a headache, maybe it'll speed and expedite some things up for you, and then maybe you can even pass that along to someone else to help them out as well. It's the whole idea behind the podcast. So today comes from, it was a coaching call, and we've started offering coaching and consulting earlier this year, and it was something brand new for us that we realized we were kind of already doing, that we had some insights and some knowledge and some skills in certain areas that not everyone does, and we could try to train people how to get those skills or teach those skills or relay those things, but in some cases it makes a whole lot more sense for the business to just pay us to come in and have a piece of our brain and help them navigate a situation. Sometimes it's marketing, sometimes it's employees, sometimes it's documentation, applications, technology. It could be various different things. But today, one of my favorite topics of all time, this conversation and this coaching call was about sales. And I love sales. It's what is my background. It is a passion that I have lifting up or educating, raising up good professional salespeople. I don't know why I am so passionate about it. It was quite literally a God-given ability, a gift that I was given, that I found myself naturally gifted at sales. And I knew how to do sales at a professional level without, I guess, even knowing it. Because I would find myself in these situations and I would do things and steer a conversation in a certain way or ask certain questions that you're supposed to ask. But I didn't have that knowledge. I just did it naturally, if that makes sense. And I'm not bragging on myself. I'm trying to give you context. Is that it just came naturally to me. So for me to be able to take that ability and gift and then teach it to other people and then watch them be able to go and essentially create a life or a career for themselves in the sales world was, to me, one of the most rewarding things that I could do. Because it's like I've learned from other people about, business and life and marriage and raising children. I've absolutely gleaned from other people, good and bad. But I want to, if I can help someone understand how sales works, or how to be better at sales, or how to do a specific element better, then I feel like, I don't know, it's just extremely rewarding for me to know that I had some measure of impact on that person and was able to help them take their career to the next level. So that's why I enjoy it and why I love it. So that being said, is I got a call, and I was like, hey, we're needing to do some kind of sales training across the board. We don't know what's kind of the main obstacle that is holding some of our salespeople back, but we know that they should be closing at a higher percentage. We know that they should be doing a better job with the presentation. We know that their follow-up is not as good as it should be. It was just kind of across the board. They had some areas in their sales department that needed help, and it was really all of it. It was like start to finish. It was like, we need an overhaul in our sales department. So when I hear that, number one, I'm skeptical, I guess you could say. I want to walk that out. I want to get to know the sales process. I want to get to know the sales training process. I want to know what collateral is available to these salespeople. What documents do they have? Is there an iPad involved? Do they have a presentation? Who builds the presentation? How are they trained kind of from day one? So we started going through this process. When I had the conversation, this initial one, I said, how deep do you want to go? And they said, complete overhaul. And I was like, okay. It's like, it's going to be 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month of diving in, because I have information that I need, which I just kind of laid out for all of you. Is like, I need to know where this all started so then we can fix it. It's one thing to come in and directly go, this is what needs to be fixed in your sales organization. It's another thing to go, here's how we prevent it from happening again. Here's how we prevent things going, I don't know, in reverting. Here's how we fix it. Because it's not just a Band-Aid. Is when we do consulting and coaching, like, I don't want it to be a Band-Aid that works today, and that you have to go reiterate again the next month or the next year. I want it to be something that is permanent. And so we expedited that. They told me they really didn't want it to take 3 or 4 weeks before we started implementing new things. So I said, look, then let's do a kind of sprint over the next week to where you get me up to speed on how this process works. And they all kind of thumbs up that. And I will tell you this, they were very good about getting me information, getting me some of their sales collateral, and connecting me with some of their sales team leaders, sales manager, they have a sales director, they have a team kind of director. And so they connected me with all those people, and I was able to ask the questions that I needed to ask to determine where the actual problems were. And they were right. They had a lot of them. So, and that's okay. A lot of times we find these things that there's issues, there's problems that got to be kind of worked out. But I will tell you where the first things first is where it started was how they hired. That was number one. Because I went in and got to meet the entire sales team. And I do not judge a book by its cover. But I've also been around sales long enough, and salespeople and personality types to kind of be able to hone in and pinpoint, are there some issues here with personnel? And there were 100% issues with personnel. There was personality issues. There were drive issues. It goes back to kind of personality a little bit, and I'll walk through that. Their goal was not to lose anybody. They said, we really don't want to lose anybody. And I asked the question, I said, what if they are an absolute wrong fit? And they said, then we would like to get them trained as much as they could possibly be trained to continue. And I was like, okay, it's not how I would have done it. I'll just put that out there. And they know that, so I'm not saying anything that they didn't know. They knew that I would probably have at least moved them to a different position in the organization if they were worth keeping, or it would have just been like, we're not doing that. We're going in a different direction. So that was their goal, and I was like, cool, I can train anybody. I feel like I really feel confident in my ability that I can train anyone to be a pretty good salesperson. They may not be the best. If they don't have the right drive and determination, things like that, that's going to be difficult to make them like top tier. But I'm pretty confident that I can make pretty much anybody a solid salesperson. So I said, cool. So that was the first step, though, is my suggestion to them was kind of the blueprint we provided back, and we're actually working through this now to help them implement it, was you need to restructure your hiring process and your recruiting/hiring process when it comes to your sales team. And that is my advice I'm going to give to you right now, is that if you are hiring for a sales position, number one, there need to be very specific questions on your application. There need to be very specific steps and things you are telling them to do and how they need to do them, because you are checking from day one if they are able to follow instructions. And I know it sounds crazy, and some of you may be like, yeah, should it really disqualify them? I think so. I think that you should 100% say, this is the process, this is how you have to do it, and here are the questions I'm asking. Do not skip a question. Email it here, or then do that. Like, you should have some steps that they need to go through, because you're checking boxes. Salespeople at a higher level are going to have to check boxes through the process. They're going to need to be able to interact with a CRM. They're going to need to be able to follow up with their prospects. They're going to need to handle their accounts. They're going to need to do things that you're going to require them to do. If they're not willing to do the small things right now, they're not going to be willing to do things down the line. It's a personality, it's a habit, it's a problem, and it will be a problem down the road. But you need to implement, once you move them from like the pool stage, where it's like you have all these people applying that they're like, I'm the best thing ever, down to the next phase, which is like, hey, we're actually going to do a individual or group interview. That is up to you. For me, I have suggested both, depending on the organization and the structure. We have done group interviews at this stage to where it's like they're all on a call, or they can all come in, and then you're just kind of putting information out there. You're seeing whose eyes lit up, who interacted, who stood out, and then you're moving them to the next phase. Or you can go and do individual at this point if you really just want to. But they need to go through a personality assessment. Is that you need to put them through a DISC assessment so you can determine kind of, does this person have some qualities that I'm really looking for? Again, I'm one of those that I think that you can make a pretty good salesperson out of just about anybody, but I also know the key indicators on the DISC assessment of what is going to provide me insight that this person could be a rock star. So that is the two things there. That's a couple of things we suggested with them. We're helping them revamp kind of their prospecting and hiring and recruiting documents and paperwork and process. We're helping them with that. But that's the two main things, that they need to tweak their questionnaire, interview, hiring process. They need to implement DISC assessments across the board, and then they need to hire based off of those two things. Next was training. Is we went through the process and we said, how are you training these new people to be sales staff? And essentially it was, there really wasn't one. They kind of shadowed another salesperson for a few days and kind of saw the process, and they allowed that person to kind of be their trainer. There was no incentive for that salesperson. They essentially just got to become a babysitter for a couple of days because they were told to do it. There was several things I didn't like about this entire process. There was also several things that I suggested they do. So I'm going to walk you through that. Number one, there needs to be a documented sales training manual. And it's not very difficult to do. You have your sales staff, you know what they're doing, you know what buttons they're clicking, levers they're pulling, phone calls they're making, trips they're making, whatever it is. Different organizations are different in how you sell, but there is a process to how they're supposed to sell, especially from I'm brand new and I have no connections outside of my network to now I've been here a little while and I've got this like sphere of influence happening and a Rolodex of contacts. There needs to be a documented sales training manual that walks them through the different steps of that sales cycle. And it is from, here is how you meet new people, and here is how you enter those new contacts into a CRM system. Here's how you follow up and process follow up, whether it's email or text message through our CRM system. Here's how you build a proposal if they're responsible for that. here it's sales training to the sense of like, it's not just how do you click buttons, it's navigating the process and teaching them some of the like sales psychology as well. So like, if your prospect says this, then this. If your prospect is showing signs of this, then this. It's like actual sales training. Now, fast forward. This was the next suggestion I made. There should not be random people teaching them how to do the sales process. There should be someone inside of that organization that is like, they have a sales manager, but he's not training anybody. They had a team director, he's not training anybody. They're essentially like glorified circus wranglers, if that's what the best I could express. They had the jobs. It wasn't that they weren't doing anything. It was that they weren't specifically tasked with training. Side note I will make. Your top salesperson should not always be your sales manager. And I've talked about that on a previous podcast. It's organizations want to like naturally deviate to that. Well, this guy is our top salesperson. That means he knows sales the best. He should be our sales manager or sales trainer. That is not always the case. I would actually lean he's more probably inclined and better at being the trainer than he is at being the manager, because just because he's good at sales doesn't mean that he wants to manage people. And you may drive that man or woman right away from your organization. They're like, this is not what I signed up for. My sales are suffering now because I'm babysitting and I can't go and sell. It's what I know how to do. I enjoy selling because I'm kind of a lone wolf, and that's what I'm allowed to do. Yeah, it can go south really, really quick. Same way we talked about hiring other positions, that's how you should hire for your sales manager too. But here was my suggestion to them. We sat down and we looked at the sales manager's time. We looked at kind of the sales director or team director position. Neither one of them really had the time to train new hires. And that was legitimate. It was like, we kind of dove into that. But what we did find is that between the two of them, they did have the time. Neither one individually did to train someone like full time, but between the two of them, and what was even better is like the sales manager was like the sales psychology kind of guru. Like he could help them learn about objections and smoke screens and how to overcome and how to do these different things. The sales kind of team director, he was more of like the tech side. Like he was fantastic at showing you how to use their CRM and how to make your job honestly easier and follow the right process. So between the two of them, we wrote out and mind mapped kind of how this would work. A new hire would come in. Really what you want them to work on first is we were going to work on the technical stuff first. They need to know how to get into the CRM, because if they start making phone calls or sending text messages or things like that of just their network of, hey, this is where I'm at now, this is what I sell, and I wanted to let you know. They need to be able to enter those things into the CRM system, and they also need to know how to communicate through that CRM system, because they were fully integrated. They would text and email inside of the CRM system. So we wanted them to know that stuff first, then secondary, and it was almost immediate. It was like literally first week, they were going through a 3-day sales boot camp with the sales manager. We integrated some roundtable stuff where some of their top salespeople could come in and kind of give their best practices and things like that. It was kind of unique. We haven't done that at every organization where we've kind of worked on a sales process. So that was kind of unique, and I like that idea. And it's probably something that we will integrate more and more down the road, because I think it's important that you have some of your veterans come in the room, and while they don't want to train them or babysit them necessarily, they could come in and express and talk about, like, here's some of the things that I have found really helpful for me. Here's maybe a book I've read, or here's a certain networking group that you should try. I think it's really important they get to see that. You're building some culture there as well. They're getting to see from these guys and go, hey, if they're able to do it, I can do it. You're able to build like some kind of hoorah, if you will, from that as well, and not made up, very legitimate. So that was hiring, and then like the onboarding and training. It was like, if you do not have a proper onboard, especially sales, I feel like if you do not have a proper kind of onboarding process, training documents, just a literal like sales training process, then you are quite literally throwing these people out to the wolves. And that went back to, we started looking at historically, this is why you've probably had sales churn. And you haven't been able to like fully staff or keep the people because you've been throwing them to the wolves. Now, in their, I guess, the positive side is the only people that were sticking around in the organization were like really good salespeople, because they had to adapt. They had to go and figure it out how to, make sales with very little to go off of. And yeah, so, I mean, I don't know what this person is doing, but they're trying to get us in a car wreck, I think. So yeah, what we got around them. So we're all safe and everything's good. So that was really the first two main things. And now kind of going forward is I asked them, I said, now what is the process going forward? Like, do you have weekly sales meetings? Do they have kind of regular things to like level up their skills and like role play scenarios and walk through obstacles and objections? And, you know, what do y'all have in terms of that? And they were like, no, like we don't really do that. Like we have some, you know, when something comes up, when there's a problem, I was like, that's the worst time to have a meeting. Like everybody's already like not happy, in a bad mood, and like all that stuff, and then you're gonna be like, hey, we're gonna have a meeting, and then you're gonna sit down and like tell everybody what they're doing wrong. Yeah, it's just not ideal. You talk about wanting to kill morale, like that's one easy, fast way to do it. So yeah, I think that that's not good. So I told him, I said, what I would like to see, and again, these salespeople, they're like in office 65-75% of the time, and then they're out of the office the other 25% of the time, and that varies week to week. They're very heavy kind of inside sales inside the office, but they do have events that they go to. There is some networking things that they go do. So but I told him, I said, I really would like to see you structure it where at least like once a week there is a touch point where it's like if it's first thing Monday morning or it's closing the week out on a Friday. I do not think, and hear me when I say this, I do not think that you need to have a meeting just for the sake of having a meeting, but because of where they were at with their organization and because they wanted their sales team, this was every organization is sales driven, but like if they figured out this process, every single salesperson they would add would be 6 figures per month in revenue. So like for them to figure out the process to where they could plug and play and then plug and play and then plug and play over and over and over again, they could scale very rapidly. Now we would be jumping onto the production side and figuring out those loopholes to make sure they can still deliver. But these are like just the missing pieces of what's going on. And so like you have possibly inside your organization, like if you do not have properly documented sales training and like how it works, then you are setting your people up for failure. Is like if they do not have the tools that they need, number one, if they don't have like a presentation to rely on, if they do not have, and I'm not saying you have to go back and old school and flashcards and, you know, stuff like that, but I'm saying if they don't have the tools they need, like how, if I come in your, and that's kind of how we did this, I was like, okay, I know enough about you that, and I feel reasonably gifted enough at sales that let me walk through the process. Let me try to sell you. So I sat down with the ownership and the leadership group, and I was walking them through it, and I was like, they go, well, you didn't cover this. And I was like, well, how am I supposed to know that? Like, do your sales staff have that collateral? And this was like a kind of a money saving pitch that they would be pitching. And I was like, how am I supposed to have that? Is there a calculator that you guys have built, or are you just saying these things because you know them? And they're like, well, we're saying them because like we just know. It's like, they got to know that though. So it's little things like that if your team does not have, and this is across the board, we're just relating it to sales right now, but if your team does not have the tools that they need to be successful, then everyone is going to struggle, including the business as a whole. Like they have to be equipped, then they have to be empowered. And that was what I walked through them. That's what we eventually kind of landed on. It was like, I want to equip your team with, well, first of all, I want to equip your leadership with the skills and the process for recruiting and hiring salespeople. That's number one. I want to equip them with those tools. Next, I want to equip your new hires with the things that they need from a technology perspective, training in the technology, and then like sales psychology and sales skills and how to be a professional salesperson. Like I want to equip them with those skills, which will then empower them to go do the job that they need to do. Because there is a difference between like an order taker and someone that like sells stuff and like a professional salesperson. A professional salesperson knows their product and believes in their product and can present that product and overcome any type of doubt or uncertainty if they believe that their prospect would benefit from their product. If they believe that the problem that prospect has can be solved by what they have to offer, then they will, literally go to the lengths of the end of the world to ensure that that prospect leaves with that product or makes that purchase, because they're that good. Because that's essentially all sales is sales is like this exchanging of information. Is like, I'm going to ask questions to determine what you have going on and what problems you have, and then I'm going to do some calculations in my head to determine if what I have can solve your problem, and then I'm going to present it to you in that way. I'm going to present it to you in a way where it was like, you told me this was the problem, this is how I solved that. This was your problem, this is how I solved that. This was your problem, this is how I solved that. And what happens is not only did I just go, hey, everything that you're having an issue with, my product solves that problem, but also in my presentation, I overcame every possible objection that they could have. Like, hey, most people are worried about like the overall cost. That's the great thing about what we do, is like, it's 25% up front, and then we're going to kind of bill you out over that. So number one, you're really getting to try it out without paying in full, so you can just kind of pay us over time, but you also don't have this huge investment at the very beginning. We would never want to do that to you. They were already thinking in their head, we can't afford it, but then like already overcame that. This is like this is like scratching the surface. This is the difference in I'm in sales versus like I'm a rock star. I am a sales professional. This is like the true, I could sell ice to Eskimos type person. And that's who ultimately you want inside your organization. You want someone with ethics. I do not believe, and don't get me wrong, there are sleazy scam artist salespeople that are out there, and I hate even calling them that, because they're not that. They're scam artists. They're not salespeople, but they use the ability to persuade and provide perspective on what they do, and they get someone to believe in them. And they're con artists, right? Like, they're spam. They're just liars at the end of the day. So that is not what you want inside your organization. You want people with ethics. You want people that believe in what you do. You want people that buy in, but they can't do that if they're not equipped and empowered. So I hope that this was helpful. Again, this was giving you insight into kind of a conversation, a coaching, consulting client that we have that we're actively working through their sales process right now. We're actually in the process of kind of writing out that documentation of like how they will interview, how they will, what questions that they will ask, and then we're actually building out their sales training manual right now. So we're helping them with that as well. So if any of that is something that we could help you with, please reach out and at least have a conversation with us. We're not going to sell you anything on that call. We just want to see if it's something that we can help you with, whether it is, sales driven, marketing, advertising driven, culture driven, production. I mean, really, honestly, technology, maybe you're lacking there and you want to see what's possible with automations and different things like that. We just love to have that conversation with you and see if it is something we could possibly help you with, because there are things that we cannot, but there are things that we can. But I hope this podcast itself was helpful. It's like, this is how we would look at an organization and figure out what is broken. They knew it was their sales process, but they didn't know what about the sales process, and they didn't know how to fix it. And so I hope this just gives you a little bit of picture of, now you can go back to your organization and kind of look and go, are these things wrong in ours? Are we hiring the right way? Are we training the right way? Are we equipping and empowering our people and setting them up for success? Or are we just kind of tossing them to the wolves and hoping they figure it out? So again, hope this was helpful. Please subscribe over on YouTube, give us a favorite or give us a review over on audio, and we will see you guys in the next one.